212 CTM. Happy Monday. Those in the US celebrating Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. And public markets are closed. Futures are about to close probably, I don't know, in about 45 minutes. And here we go. It feels like the calm before the storm. Are you trying to wave? You trying to wave? It feels like the calm before the storm as tariffs are jumping back into the timeline. We're looking here at Trump imposing 10% tariffs across select EU nations, set to bump up to 25%. It looks like they might see some retaliatory tariffs against the U.S. And then we got the Supreme Court potential looming decision. Markets do not like uncertainty, and we got a whole bunch of uncertainty around us. I want to super light and sweet today. It's a holiday. By the way, New York Stock Exchange moving towards 24/7. It's 24/7 or 24/5. I have a post to bring up maybe tomorrow just to check in on it as they begin to tokenize all of the public stocks. Luke, we got to talk first about silver. Silver here trading at $94.50. And here's my take. My take is this. We can come back over here and we have that video in March 2023 where I said gold is breaking out into a super cycle. Super cycle. It wasn't like trying to catch people's attention. It was breaking out into a super cycle after this massive over decade cup and handle finally resolving. And I said it's not going to stop at 2,500. Remember, people did not believe that it would hold the breakout, much like silver today, and or continue further. And I said I'll see you at $5,000, and then we will reevaluate. Now we're trading at 4,672. If you look on the monthly chart, ever since February 2025, you see that we have been overbought on the RSI, the longest in gold's history. In my opinion, we're looking at monetary reset taking place in real time. The only time that I would think of potentially getting ready to exit the metals as this monetary reset is definitely underway. And don't forget, there's a fundamental reason for what's happening here with gold. And with gold specifically, you are looking at more central banks now holding gold than to U.S. treasuries. Major shift ever since the U.S. decided to weaponize the U.S. dollar. EU doing much the same, confiscating Russia's reserves. Close enough to 5,000 to reevaluate. And all I will say is that, listen, I don't think we're anywhere close to a top. I think that this is going to continue for the years ahead. And of course, there will be pullbacks. I'm surprised we haven't seen a bigger pullback than we did in this area coming back over here, or this one over here. But there's a button here. Oh, the only thing that would make me reformulate my current stance on gold specifically, and not silver, on gold, would be if the Federal Reserve was forced to an outright devaluation and run outright QE again. If they were to do that, shortly thereafter, I would be looking here to rotate out of gold. Silver is pretty similar. I get to speak on silver because if you remember, well before the breakout above 50K, we were lining this up regularly together. Regularly, we were lining this trade up over here. And I was saying, listen, I think I gave the initial breakout targets of somewhere in the low $70 range. And I said, we're not stopping at, what did I say? I don't remember exactly. So I'm going to give rough sketches over here. Dvacanet, you've heard it so many times. If you remember the exact numbers I give, please give me. But I did think that the initial breakout above 50, and by the way, we broke out above 50, and then we had that shakeout, and I held the line, and I talked about all the finance bros, all the metal heads who were how they got shucking out, like above 50 getting in, and then and then getting out on that shakeout, and we hit above that low 70 range pretty quickly. I I don't remember like I did a similar thing to gold where I said it's not stopping at 2,500 and I'll see you at 5,000. With silver, I can't remember the exact numbers I gave. I'm gonna pretend I'll go higher than I think, and I think I said 100. And listen, there's no way that I'm looking to like silver's going in my own view significantly higher. Of course there will be volatility, but again, when we talk about ultimately when the Fed is forced to outright QE, that's like the time to get ready to sell out of gold shortly thereafter. But silver likely to continue run. The only time that you might see any type of stress out on silver and the gold to silver ratio, which is not even close to bottoming in my opinion, if you were to see some type of stress, some type of liquidity stress within the financial system. I don't even think that we're close to that as the Fed here has acted appropriately. $40 billion a month of balance sheet expansion, which by the way, the way that we looked at it, and we called this Fed playbook for the last 2 years plus about what exactly would happen at this particular moment. This is exactly what's happening. I know that there are many macro experts out there. I don't know one who called the Fed playbook as it's playing out in advance as we did. So, yeah, silver looks overbought here at 94. Listen, we're close enough to 100 that we're getting our first. I think this thing is going not just triple digits, but listen, it would have to be I don't want to say numbers; they sound so ridiculous. So I'll let you know if at any point in time from a Fed cycle perspective, we would have to return to outright QE, and then I would be looking roughly several months in the future here to potentially even think about exiting gold. It was 90. Thank you. I didn't know what it was. I can't remember exactly because it's not really that important in so much as that was just the first check. So a lot of people have a lot of opinions now about gold and silver. We've been pretty, this is just lined up as I'm not calling a top here. I don't think we're close to a top. Do I think that we'll follow the technicals? And right now on the technicals, as far as any near-term pullbacks and or consolidation that will pull up, well, we have the yellow line that we're above. We had a different one that kind of played out. Let me try to get back on here because this one was faded very quickly. I think I could pull it up. It's not pulling up as far as I go back over here. It was this though, and off of these bottom wicks over here, and you could see that broke down. Nice little pullback on the breakdown. Well, not really. A 4% pullback is nothing these days. Right around the end of the year, we were having 9-10% days, upside, downside. That was pretty strong volatility, but you could see the magnitude of how quickly this sell impulse was faded. And then you have following it by the buy impulse, gapping above it over here, taking us back up. This yellow line over here is now what I'm watching as far as pretty solid and established support. And as long as we're holding above 85, higher we continue right now. 120, 300 potentially. I would not let go of anything below 300. And that's a high number. But like the thing about it, and the truth is that silver has obviously, like gold, been suppressed for a very, very, very long time. And it's just being repriced, and we talk about it. A lot of us expected years ago that we would have, and I always said to you, wait, Luke, you've been here. I've always said to you, in this decade, in our lifetime, and in this decade specifically, gold, I believe, is going to be repriced. And I think I always envision that of waking up one night and gold trading at I don't know, 16, $20,000, something like that. But what's been happening is that, and we've kind of just been mentioning this for a while, is that what's happening is gold is actually being repriced in real time. It's not an overnight repricing where gold is trading where it should. It's this massive bid. I mean, we're looking at gold on the monthly overbought here going on its 11th month. Absolutely insanity. That is monetary reset happening in real time. Is silver and other commodities going to also be I don't say a benefit of that? Well, it's this new world that we are definitely transitioning into. So here we are. That's my take on what's happening over here. Hold on. So there must be some hidden force of the market that will lift silver supply coming from each and every angle. It's hard. You saw Samsung. Samsung is developing these new solid state storage batteries, right? That takes a significant amount of silver inside the silver channel, inside the precious metal channels. I went ahead and I posted some information about it. And then I was asking Grok, like, Grok, what do you think of this? And Grok's like, yeah, 100%. Like, this is real. This is happening. This has X amount of demand of supply against silver. And Samsung actually made a deal with a miner, going directly to the miner to source its silver. Normally, they don't do that. Normally, you see these companies going to refineries after processing the silver from the miners, and Samsung's like, no, we need to secure our supply going to the miners. The thing is you can't just put a silver mine online, right? It takes many years, and right now, the amount of silver that's produced every year is in deficit to the amount that's used every year. I think there's probably a lot more to the story here than just the industrial usage that's at play over here. Well, I don't think that I'm qualified to speak about what exactly it is. So that Ace, thank you, and that rings true to me as well. And I thought that was likely. I thought it would be 72 on the breakout above 50, pullback, and then I said, we're not stopping at 90. I'll see you at, and my number's above. It's hard to say this far in advance, but it's above 300, and we'll see how this ages. So bringing it back over here, and Bitcoin currently continues its saga of strong downtrend over here. Fed moving towards that balance sheet expansion. We expect that it could take several weeks here for liquidity to stabilize, but surely it is stabilizing. And you see that we have the first trend line break out of it, a retest, a resumption up, and we're currently testing this very important resistance right now over here, that after breaking that structural breakdown, very important structural breakdown on Bitcoin, we have confirmed this area as resistance. We didn't even get a clean test of it recently, but pretty close into it. And I mean, look, this thing could break either way. And we have our lines in the sand that we're watching. And if we go back to what happened, this is our line in the sand, and we are currently in the middle, right? So, yeah, and it's kind of neutral. This is why I call this a meaningful repair. That would actually be a meaningful repair, but we have this strong downtrend, and we just have a first trend line break. So that kind of negates each other, right? This is why this is a meaningful repair, and we've looked at that extensively of where we currently are. So we continue here. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know whether or not how the Supreme Court, if they're going to rule, this week, which way they're going to rule, and what the reaction will be from the market and the ramifications. I think that this whole duel between the U.S. and the EU of these rising tariffs also presents a big problem, and we wait. I love this chart going into uh 2026, where you can see that prices, this is just I was gonna say yardsticks, like estimates here from Ed Yardini. And if you haven't never been to Yardini, search Yardini charts, and there's an awesome charts over here. The point is that a lot of people are expecting doom and gloom, recession 2026, Bitcoin bear market, and all the rest. And I say, well, I think the narrative is going to become reacceleration. And when it does, everyone's going to be like, oh, yeah, I saw it the whole time. And it was, and, but it's going to be the narrative in 2026. We always said first quarter, second quarter, that's murky and muddling. By the second half of the year, we should begin that acceleration. And, you know, I worry about the future. I'm not worried today, but I worried about all of this engineered trying to outgrow the debt, and the AI build out. Eventually, it's going to come to an end, and when it does, there's going to be a reckoning. I, is there a chance that the humanoids are here and all this? I, there is going to be a reckoning in between, the way I see it. And that's when I think that commodities are really going to have their, is going to be a massive boom. But right now, I think we're going to return towards growth and strong growth. And I do think that we're going to see this delayed business cycle ultimately ending with an upside swing. And then after that, and so get worried. You don't have to get worried, but get worried when I start getting worried. When I say you don't have to get worried, I mean, well, right now, throughout this murkiness here, this uncertainty of this first quarter, second quarter, we're 100% on the sidelines in stocks. Very, very rare. Massive position of power, if you ask me. By the way, we started attacking the short side now. We went from attacking the long side ahead of, and this is the one thing that I have off over here. My expectations, this is not the one thing. I'm probably off by a lot. But this is one thing that my expectations were that tech would lead out of the balance sheet expansion, that Bitcoin would finally stabilize and then follow suit. And also that this could be a period here where you see not only dollar bid, but you could see Bitcoin bid, and you could also see gold bid all at the same time, as it was this point last time Fed cycle. But we're seeing tech not leading yet. I mean, and is there good reason? Is it these tremendous uncertainties overhanging the market as far as Supreme Court ruling on the Trump tariffs? Now the next saga over Greenland and the tit for tat tariffs that are happening between yeah, those things are murky right now as we're in the muddle point before the reacceleration. So we're not yet seeing tech leading, and we haven't yet seen, it could happen, be prepared, Bitcoin make the lower low. Because going back to 2019, Bitcoin made two lower lows before ultimately stabilizing. It doesn't mean that it needs to. And you can say, well, back then there was only $20 billion a month of organic balance sheet expansion. Jordan, this time it's not even organic balance sheet expansion. They called it reserve management purchases because they think you're retarded. Yeah, it's twice as much, a little bit more than twice as much until Powell leaves. He's making sure that he could do whatever he can to not have this thing fall apart on his watch. But the balance sheet is almost twice as much as it was back over here as well. So it's really the same pace as we saw last time on that balance sheet expansion. So Bitcoin so far has been holding its own. And I could look back at what happened over here and I could say, well, at this point, Bitcoin had a massive run up. Remember, Bitcoin went off its low, 3,800, all the way to 14,000 in 6 months period. And so maybe there was more room for it to revert back down. Yeah, Bitcoin was at an all-time high, but it didn't have that massive run up in the 6 months prior or anything close to it. So maybe that could be a little bit of a difference about why we're seeing those things. And Luke, there's been a strong rotation at the beginning of this year, and we've seen it going from the way I liked. I mean, and the breadth has been super healthy now, and that was missing in the past. And now we're looking at the breadth continuing to look a lot very healthy. Doesn't seem like a top to me. Could be, but doesn't seem like one to me. And then we're seeing a lot of what for me it looks like a lot of money flowing from the Mag 7, and that will continue to flow in there because of the passive flows, but into smaller caps and growth. And here we have the 2016. Let's take a look at it, and I'm just gonna look from a weekly now. We're 2 weeks in, so let me just pull up a 2 week chart and see if that will work for just kind of getting a glimpse. And so this starts, I'm looking for where January 1st actually is. Monday the 5th, good enough. That's as we open up over here. And you could see as the Mag 7 has been pretty stagnant, maybe Google aside, you could see that we are seeing a run up in these, look at this, across the board. And that looks like a rotation to me. And then we can see NVIDIA, and NVIDIA is flat, right? You can see that rotation. So if we forget financials, but that's down. Sorry. And then I have my first quarter picks over here. I want to check out how they're doing over here. So NVIDIA is the only one lagging, and these things have been mooning since. Looks good. Yeah, I don't believe in the aliens. I think they were supposed to be the alien psych op, and people were just like Project Bluebeam, whatever. And then they're like, oh well, the Bank of England is stress testing for aliens now. So maybe they're gonna try and pull the alien card, and people. All right, listen, if they tell you tomorrow that there are aliens, are you de-risking selling your portfolio? Is that gonna? I don't know. Listen, I just don't know. And you know what? Well, I don't want to go here. Back in the day, right now, I would just go off on some Jordan type stuff here and break down what I believe is actually happening. But not today. Not today. And I have a high degree of certainty through life experience. It is what it is. But and then you see Nvidia here is the only one on the first quarter that's lagging. Wait till its earnings though, and I think Nvidia's earnings are going to be fantastic. I think that Nvidia here likely is going to be able to push into that no all-time highs. Um, I didn't go there. I backed off. I totally backed off on the aliens. So, yeah. Again, just to recap, we're in that muddle phase. It could get murky right now with the current uncertainty brought about between the I don't even call it a fight, whatever's happening between the EU and the US, and and the Supreme Court, and whether or not, and we talked about, listen, there should be a correction. More often than not, there is a correction, and we looked at some other ways of visualizing it, and that correction of 10% has something like, let's call it a 75% chance. And listen, I embrace it because it sets up for us. I mean, right now chilling, and it sets up for us whenever it does occur, the opportunity then to ride some nice gains out of it. So and right here though, coming into this year, and if you believed any type of, I believe it. I believe this. Again, I get worried at some point, so I don't know. But I'm pretend 1 year at a time. If this is a pretty good goalpost, which I think it is, coming into it, you're at the 50% level, right? And we trade down, we come down, trade 10% off, down towards 63. I think that's a good place here to look for some positions. No. So yes, thanks for bringing it back over here. A couple updates over here I want to get into and talk about right now. First of all, it's pretty significant. First of all, buy side boost over here. Massive, massive, massive Don going ahead and preparing a potential option here for people for once a day. And Brian, I need to first lock this down. So tomorrow, and then there's about 4 or 5 people, including yourself, to get this out to further consider. And we know that we have some data that Don has provided over here, and it seems like a very viable option for people to consider. So that's something that we are definitely going to continue to work on. The other thing was Brownie over here, taking a look, and the question came up about Bitcoin bull runs and with V4 and out of all of our Bitcoin templates, and you could go back over here and again, going all the way back to CTM 2.0 right over here, like still an amazing solution. And all of them, even buy side only 101, having a bad year last year, a really bad year, is it's not broken. It's still going to continue to perform, but there's no question that if you look at V4, it is by far the best performing Bitcoin template that we have, and by a pretty strong margin. Now, does that make Bitcoin bull runs obsolete? Absolutely not. Every single one of these is a viable option. Bitcoin bull runs, and I also believe specifically against cold storage, this offers a potential really strong hedging opportunity. So it's completely viable and a lot more that needs to be done. On Ethereum, it's a little bit different. Why V4? If you take away the first year, 2016, and the massive volatility over there, V4 slightly itching out. CTM 2.0 and CTM V2, which are both they're about even. They're pretty strong candidates, especially in the last 4 years. They match performance, and then you had barely eking out V4. But then Brownie Brown went ahead and actually back tested using the toggle. When Bitcoin bull runs is in a bull market, rising tide that lifts all boats, you take off that ST2 filter. And when it's out of a bull run, at that point, you turn back on that filter, that extra protection, and it looks like this is outperforming. So you have in the last year, you have 58% from both V4 and the toggle, I call it, V2 here. You have a pretty close performance in 2024 with V4 outperforming by 10%. And then also again in 2023, V4 outperforming by less than 10%. And then you move into the volatile times. 2022 is very volatile on Ethereum, 2021. And the edge here by far goes to the toggling. And then you go back even further than that, and it's outperforming. But the last 3 years, V4 outperforming by a small margin. But overall, the toggling outperformed. So that's a very difficult decision, I think, for people to have to consider. But it needs to be considered about what they prefer, or whether or not they prefer to go with an allocation of each for their Ethereum positions. It's a tough one. Well, I don't know what MAR is. I don't know. You can't automate the toggling. The toggling cannot be automated in any way. It's impossible. Just like buy side boost cannot be buy side boost cannot be as well. There's 100, I guess 150. Is it likely this year? Yeah, if my macro view is correct, and depending on what happens in the first 2 quarters, what we're working off of, you know, everything's on the table. As far as likely, that's a wild card. I mean, that could definitely potentially, yes, that could potentially be something that should be looked at pretty soon. That should go up as a high priority over here, right? And I wonder, Brownie Brown, are you listening? That I have no idea. I wonder, and let's just try this. This is not going to work, but I'm going to try it. Let's start over here. I'm going to go from 2023 through 2024. These 2 years where Bitcoin bull runs was mostly in the market over here. And I'm going to look at the performance here on Ethereum, and you have 300%. I'm going to take off the filter, assuming that it was in the bull market most of the time over there, and doesn't seem to work out. So that's interesting, right? And the drawdown 21 for so Michelle, I'm going to say likely not. Now that was extremely crude, rough sketch over there, but likely enough that it's not needed. Is 150,000 Bitcoin likely is the operative word to be talked about over here. And I keep scanning my eyes and I can't find the one that I want. So, I mean, even if we didn't make, even if we make a higher high on price, but go down significantly structurally over here, right? You have structural lower high structurally. Yes, it's a higher high price, but structurally it's a lower high, right? Over here, this is an even high. You can see the even high between these two. This was a lower high. And if you make another test all the way down over here, a lower low, and I'll look at the one below it, I mean, this one coming into the end of the year is still well above 150. And even this like a real lower low here, 150, you have to say is I don't know if it's likely, but it's well on the table. And at the same time, so is, down over here. And, you know, 76 and into 70. Which one is more likely? You're kind of in the no man's land between the two. I don't know which one is more likely, in so much as that we are murky here right now in the first quarter and likely through the second potentially. And yeah, that might depend on how quickly or long current unknowns are resolved, and also as we get towards earnings, which I imagine they're continue going to be pretty good over here, and likely it's not until the second half that we start seeing a return of the rage of Mag 7. But yeah, it's as likely and probable as also is lower. So yeah, but this would be a zone, right? That I would be highly interested in, no doubt about it. And as is this one here, though. And don't forget, we are, my view, no, not a Bitcoin bear market in 2026, not a recession in 2026, working towards reacceleration. Bitcoin off 30%, more than 30%, its largest drawdown in the bull market, is super interesting down here as well to me. So, anyway, fun session. A lot longer than I even anticipated in or expected because of the holiday. But we get going, and Just love the time together. We'll keep it light though until tomorrow. Everyone have a beautiful day. God bless you. Thanks for being here. Hey, if you didn't already hit a like button on your way out today, please do. And God bless you, everyone. Have a beautiful day.